In this video, I'm gonna talk about some Alperen Sengun. There's been a lot of discussion about his fit in the NBA, his fit on the team, and with the Denver Nuggets on the doorstep of the NBA Finals, with Jokic taking this team to the NBA Finals, going through Suns, going through the Lakers, going through the Timberwolves, which was really nothing, but to get them there, is this something that we should reflect on and kind of reconsider? Should the Rockets reconsider how they value Alperen Sengun? I'm going to tap into all of that and some more in this video. Tap in, enjoy.
I'm going to go with Alperen Sengun.
That's a good
Beast.
He big
Beast.
dog. He a
big dog. He in Houston Rockets. He's the Houston Rockets big man. And he's got shades of Marc Gasol. He's got shades of Pau Gasol. He's got shades of Jokic. He's got shades of like the great bigs that can pass, that can shoot, that can play make. You know what I mean? He's super, super high IQ player. Like I love his game. And as a competitor, you can see when like, all right, this guy is gonna be special, or like, I don't really see the vision. You know what I mean? Like I can sense that. I can see that playing against these kids. Like he's really good. He's really talented. Like he just don't have, like you can see guys don't have the opportunity, but they got it. You see glimpses and it's like, yo, this kid can hoop. He's really good. And the same goes with Sengun. Like he can really hoop. He's got a good touch, good feel. He's got playmaking, great vision. Like he's gonna be like the baby Joker. I think he's got a full, complete package at the center position.
So there's been a lot of talk about trading Alperen Sengun, trading this player, that player. I got into it a little bit on Locked On Rockets. Y'all might have seen I got cooked for it, trading Jabari Smith. I still think it was a good trade. I don't care what y'all say. But anyway, so this video, I wanted to look at, we compared Alp to Sabonis earlier, right? In the first round, how Sabonis basically didn't really look that good offensively, but played decent defense against the Warriors. And his offense is kind of what gave him away. And then, obviously the two comps for Alp, lower end is going to be Sabonis, higher end is Jokic. Before I even go any further, just want to give proper reps to Jokic, who I did not think would be able to make it to the finals. I'm not going to lie. I had the Lakers beating them, but they handled their business. They did what they were supposed to do. And he is man. He's the man. He's always been the man. My thing was never about him. I just didn't think the team was good enough. But, really surprised me. And he's really doing things and setting standards that aren't really going to be broken or met by other big men like him. Like the archetype of the uber athletic bigs. He's really taking that to a new level with his passing, playmaking, shooting, even low-key his defense. He's not the best defender in the world, but he's a smart player, puts himself in the right positions, knows how to position his body, knows how to move his feet, kind of works for him. So he is a one of one. And obviously, I'm not saying Alperen Sengun is going to be Nikola Jokic, because Jokic is special. He is going to be probably a top 10, 15 greatest player of all time. He's already on that track right now, and he's only 28 years old. But there are some similarities. There are some similarities that we cannot ignore, right? We've seen the comps with, like I said, I've done videos about these similarities before. But the more data I get, the more I like to update you all on kind of where we are on this track between the Alp, Jokic, Sabonis thing. I'm going to say right now, I already think Alp already cleared Sabonis. He's already outshot him for whatever the trajectory is. Unless Alp just stops developing as a player, he's going to clear the Sabonis comps. Not saying he's better than Sabonis right now, but the trajectory he's on at basically a baby. He's 20, about to be 21. He's already surpassed them. So as far as like where Sabonis, I don't think Sabonis was in the league when he was 20. So yeah, so that's not even a thing anymore. Now it's going to be whether Alp can fall somewhere close to Jokic. I don't think he's going to be better than Jokic just because of the size and other things. But I think what's the phrase? You aim at the stars and land on the moon. If he is even a tier below, I mean, what does that look like? If Jokic is going to be projected out to be a top 15, top 20 player of all time. So if Alp is a tier below, should the Rockets really consider how they view him? Because I feel like the organization, and shout outs to Rockets Watch, to Dave and all those guys, Jackson, Roosh, all of them on Rockets Watch, who really provided some insight from the organization, and they kind of don't really prioritize Alp like the rest of the core four. So that really has me thinking, like, do they really value him like that? So we're going to get into it. And based on what Jokic is doing, Should they reconsider that? I believe so, but I'm going to do what I do and use evidence to speak for me.
Kevin called you Baby Joker when talking about your playmaking ability. What does that mean to have that coming from your teammate? You know, he's that impressed with how you can share the basketball.
Yeah, they when they are telling me this, I feel good. Like it make me happy because he's my idol, you know, and I'm passing like him sometimes. That's why they're telling me, I think.
Are you looking forward to playing him this week?
Oh yeah, I'm ready to play for him. Actually, yeah, I'm really ready to play for him, and I'm excited.
So I'll just start by comparing just their generic stats. Alp was a 14, 9, and 3.9 assist guy. Jokic in the second year, 16.7, 9, and 4.9. So nothing really crazy going on there with their second year average is very similar. Jokic had a bit higher usage than Alp did. And remember, usage is possessions that end with shots. So he had more opportunities to score than Alperen did on the team he was on. If you look at really where the difference comes in is, and it's not a crazy difference, it's, when it comes to their shooting, right? And the shooting is where Jokic is really kind of different, even as a young guy. But the more I looked into this, Alperen isn't doing that bad. You know what I mean? You look at their 2-point percentages, 57% for Alp from the twos. That's including layups and mid-range and other things below the 3-point line. And for Jokic was 62.8, which is pretty elite. That's pretty elite. 3-point percentage, you see Alp's a 33% 3-point shooter compared to Jokic's 32. Now, before you get crazy, Alp took 57 3-point attempts to Jokic's 139. Now, to me, this is disappointing because as we're going to look and see later on, Alp's not a bad 3-point shooter. He just didn't have a lot of volume, a lot of opportunities to really shoot these shots. And it's really the fault of the coach. I mean, he literally said that he doesn't encourage Alp to do so, which is wild to me, and on a team with young guys that are trying to be evaluated and developed.
Not necessarily. I mean, yeah, we want our best 3-point shooters shooting the ball. He's continuing to work at it, but it's not one of his strengths. So we want all our guys playing to their strengths. And his strength is if his man is all the way in the paint and there's a pick and pop, he can quickly move it. And if his man stays in the paint, then it should be an opportunity for one of his teammates to do something.
Coach, I would want to explore everything. And it seems like that's a theme within the Coach Silas era. Like there's no rhyme or reason to what he was doing. It made no sense. Lineups didn't make sense. Play types didn't make sense. Nothing he did make sense. You know what I mean? But so now let's get a little more detailed and look at some play types, right? Play types are going to be what types of plays are they running? What are the points per possession for these types of plays to tell you at what rate they're scoring? And, the first one, obviously post-ups. Alp had 233 possessions to Jokic's 247, so pretty much the same amounts of post-ups. Jokic was a better post-up player. 1.089 in a post is elite. And you got to think about why. His Alp's first year, he was one of the best post-up players. Second year kind of struggled. Guess what? They started double teaming him. So I think that kind of it's kind of hard to tell who's better in the post. But they're pretty close. The points per possession don't really do Alperen justice, but they're pretty close there. As a roll man in the pick and roll, Jokic is just much better, just a better roll man. And you got to think about the context of all this is that Jokic can shoot. So when he's a roll man, he can roll out for a shot, he can pop out, he can pop out for a three. So that's not in Alp's game. So he's really competing against Jokic in this department by scoring twos to Jokic's twos and threes. So that points per possession for Jokic includes threes, but he clearly, as an all-around player, you do count the threes, right? So he's a better player there. On cuts, Jokic is a better player, but that also factors in the point guard play. And, the Denver Nuggets in Jokic's sophomore year were pretty, they won 40 games. I think they were 40 and 42, and they had a lot of vets on the team. Jameer Nelson, Emmanuel Mudiay, not a great point guard, but Jameer played a lot with Jokic in Denver that year, and he just had vets around him. Wilson Chandler, just a bunch of different guys. They had a real team, not just a team that was tanking with experimentation at point guard. So that's really if you look at this and take a step back, when we evaluate our players, I don't care who it is, do it with a grain of salt. Because they were playing with no structure at all. Nothing. So these numbers, if you can even be close to Jokic and the Rockets offense, oh my God, right? oh my God, like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? What are we doing? What does it look like when he has structure? Hopefully we find out with Coach Udoka coming in. But, let me go on before I get on the soapbox. Spot ups. Spot ups is an interesting stat for the both of them. Alp is actually a better spot up player than Jokic was. And Alp had 128 attempts in spot up shooting. Jokic only had 134. Even though he shot a lot of threes, way more threes than Alp, you would imagine that spot ups for Alp include those 2-point jumpers that he takes. It includes the shooting from the 3-pointer as well. Transition, Alp is a much better transition player than Jokic was. And you got to imagine, what does that come with? Alp running the fast break. I mean, he has a bag. His bag is different, and he's a better athlete. He's a little more explosive. He can get to the rim. He got the Euros, the passing, all of that is there. But I was surprised to see that as a sophomore, Alp is a much, much better transition player. And in isolation, Alp just destroys him. And to me, this is where he sets himself apart from Sabonis and Jokic. So Jokic rarely beats guys just by like dribbling and crossing people over. Alperen actually does have a back, like he can cross you over. So when I'm comparing these guys, I'm not saying he's going to be Jokic, but there's some things that Alp has in his toolbox that makes him kind of a hard match as well for other players to guard. So once again, keep this in context of the fact that the Rockets offense was trash. Like the whole system was trash. And this is really like, what's that poem called? I think it's by Langston Hughes. A rose growing out of concrete. That's what we're seeing right now, right? These numbers is a rose growing out of concrete because Denver was actually trying to win and they had bets on their team. You know what I mean? So they have bets on their team. So when we look at them, specifically, I want to drill down to those spot ups because spot up shooting is where a lot of people give a lot of grief to Alperen. They say if he can't shoot, and I agree, if he can't shoot, it makes it really hard to overcompensate for his defensive limitations, the spacing issues, the other shooters on the floor, and that's a great point. And as I was doing research for this video and this pod or whatever you're listening to on, it really made me kind of drill down to a shooting. And guys, Alperen can shoot. He can shoot. He just didn't have a lot of opportunities, but the numbers are saying he can shoot. And I've seen videos on Twitter of him working on the one-legged Dirk fadeaway and things like that. Like he can shoot. If you ever go to the Rockets games in the warm-ups, I mean, he hits most of his shots. Like the dude can shoot. It's just that Coach Silas just didn't want him to shoot threes. So, even though the attempts are low, you get to see some things. And he has kind of a midi bag. So, let's look at the graphic. Let's go to the graphic just to prove my point. So Alperen, like I said earlier, has a better points per possession and spot ups than Jokic did as a sophomore. And a lot of it is based on his mid-range bag. He takes a lot of spot ups from the mid-range. And he's able to, hit those at a pretty good rate. Not as good as Jokic does, but he is able to hit them at a pretty good rate. And the threes he did take, he actually did well. Alp shooting 41.7% on spot up threes. Only 36 attempts though. And if you look at Jokic, who was a 33% spot up shooter, he took 84 attempts. So it's not, that crazy off. He took probably double the shots Alp did. Maybe over that rate, you kind of see some decline, but that'll really fall into the mid 30s as a spot up shooter for Alperen. Here's where I was really, really surprised. For all his mid-range shots this year, which he took 336, Alp shot 45% from the mid-range. Alp shot 45% from the mid-range. That's his little shot put floaters, any of those weird fadeaways that he does, anytime he tried to get the ball off the glass, things like that. He shot 45%. This is what makes Jokic elite and a one of one. In his spot up twos and his mid-range, he's shooting 65% from spot up twos overall. And in the mid-range, he's shooting 59%. So that's considerably better. And, Alp's mid-range is middle of the pack in the NBA. He's an average mid-range shooter. That's out of the restricted area. He's an average shooter in that domain in the NBA. And, for Jokic as a sophomore, he was already like one of the best mid-range shooters in the league. So that's kind of where I see like some of the like line of demarcation between the two of them is the shooting. Jokic is a considerably better shooter. But if you look at Jokic's rookie year, he was a 44% mid-range shooter, which is one less than Alp. And if you think about it, Guess how old he was as a rookie? He was 20, right? And Alperen is 20 as a sophomore. So you also have to factor in the age and the fact that he was a year older, which does lead me to believe that this coming season, I believe Alperen is going to have a big jump. He's going to have a big jump because you look at Jokic's trend, he really did take major steps over the years for that. So guys, the guy can shoot. I think most of us already knew that. We just wanted him to do more. And once again, Steven Silas, a terrorist of a coach, not allowing him to do so. Now we have to figure out what he can do. I think this summer he's going to come in with a better shot. I think Ime is going to kind of encourage and almost force him to take those shots. And, you know, because if you can hit 41% on spot ups, and if you look at the spot ups, when they're just purely catch and shoot on spot ups, he's a 44% 3-point shooter. And I think he only took like 1 or 2 threes where he actually dribbled it. So his percentage of spot ups is like, if you take away the 2 where he tried to dribble, he's a 44% spot up shooter. Just scale that up. You know what I mean? Take 1 more game like Jokic did. So Jokic took 1 more 3 attempt per game than Alperen did, and he was a 33% shooter. I think Alperen still falls within that 33-34 range. And that does tell you that the shooting is there. The shooting is there. The volume is going to increase, but in the way Ime Udoka runs his offense, you just need to be able to be a serviceable, a respectable shooter. And if you can give me 33%, 34% from my big man that can also pass, facilitate, screen, do everything else, man, you cook it. You cook it. So the area in which a lot of grief comes for Alperen, and you know, it's rightfully so, and for Jokic as a player, is defense, right? How can you get to the playoffs? That's what we've heard with a player that can protect the rim. Now, this was shocking to me. Like looking at Denver's numbers and Jokic's numbers, I mean, they are terrible at protecting the rim. One of the worst teams in the NBA. And Jokic is one of the worst rim defenders in the NBA. Like literally, he's one of the worst rim defenders in the NBA. But we'll explain why and how they can make it to the finals doing that. But first, just looking at their defense in the zones that they guard. If we're talking about just jump shots, all types of jump shots, mid-range, 3-pointers. Alperen's giving up 0.99 points per shot in 525 attempts to Jokic's as a sophomore 0.93. So he's a little bit, you know, it's kind of hard to quantify there because you got to think about the eras of basketball. They shoot more threes now. So that points per shot is kind of a little bit off because most of the field goal attempts for Alperen against Alperen were 3-pointers compared to 2s for Jokic. But what does show you the true value is the percentages. So when Alperen is not guarding the paint, everywhere else on jump shots, where there's a shot, a pull up, whatever it is, step back, guys are shooting 38%. Which is pretty damn good. That's pretty good. That's up there with every other big man that's elite at defense in the NBA. And I pointed this out in a previous video that I've done. I'm pointing out some of the defensive strengths that he does have. He can guard, he can guard in space pretty good. Jokic at his age was giving up 40% from that range. Here's where it goes off the barn. At the rim, Alperen is giving up 1.23 points per shot, which is nuts. That's terrible. That's horrible. And Jokic at the rim was 1.12 points per shot, both about 200 or so possessions. And this is where you get a little worried about Alperen, is the fact that he's not a great rim protector. And if there is a big gaping hole in his fit on a contender, it's going to be this. But there's a but there, but I'll explain it more later. And comparing the field goal percentage for opponents at the rim, field goal percentage, 61% for Alperen, 55% for Jokic. Weird thing is that as Jokic got better as a player, his field goal defense at the rim got worse, like terribly bad. Like currently right now, if you look on NBA.com, he's like 70-some% defending the rim. You know, Synergy has him in the high, like 66%. NBA.com has him at like 71%. So they kind of look at things a little differently. To Alperen, 69%. So Alperen's a better rim protector, rim defender than Jokic is. And the eye test is there. Alperen's a better athlete, better leaper, times the ball fairly well. But Denver does have a way that they avoid some of those things. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So the question is, how do the Nuggets get to the finals with having one of the worst rim defenders in the NBA? And what does that mean for the Rockets? So let's talk about that right now. So the Denver Nuggets right now, they have the 29th worst rim protecting field goal percentage in the NBA. at 70.6%. I think the only one worse than that is the Pelicans. The Pelicans is the only team worse than that. But there's a method to their madness. There's a method to their madness. There's a quote that Ime Udoka that he has said that really just let me know that he's a good coach. And this is the sign of all good coaches. It's the ability to use the things you have and the tools available to you and maximize on that. Like, don't focus on what you can do. Look at your ingredients. If you're going to cook a meal, you got to cook with your ingredients that you have. And I'm going to put the quote up right now. You're going to be seeing it as I'm saying this. But that quote really resonates with me when I'm thinking about how the Rockets are going to move going forward with this team build, because we have a bunch of unique players. And one thing that great teams do is know how to maximize the talent on their roster. Let's look at the Nuggets. So the Nuggets, like I said, opponents are shooting 70.6% at the rim. But you know what their philosophy is? Is play to their strengths. Jokic is one of the worst rim defenders in the NBA, but Denver has a middle of the pack defense, and they're near elite in certain things, and they know what those things are, and they play to their strengths. What am I talking about? Mid-range, corner threes and threes. They're going to give up. You can have the rim. Their defense is you can have the rim, but you will not make a shot. And what they do, if you watch how they've been playing when they played against the Lakers, they do play the drop coverage with Jokic, and teams try to put him in the pick and roll and try to, screen him and use him as a mismatch. But Denver has this amoeba defense where they help from the wings and then rotate aggressively with length and size and smart closeouts. And they anticipate their rotations. Once again, I've been saying this forever. Defense is a team concept. You can make up for having a Marc Gasol against the Golden State Warriors if you have smart defenders around him. And Denver has a bunch of smart defenders. They're not even that great, like, athletically. They're not like the 96 Bulls. They're not the 04 Pistons. This isn't the Heat with LeBron and Wade and Bosh. Like, these are just a bunch of smart players that have high IQ and nowhere to be. You know what I mean? These are not great great defenders, but they have a very good mix of players, and they have good length at multiple positions, especially at the wings with Porter and with Aaron Gordon. And they're able to contest, close out, and keep their feet and doing what they do. And this is what, look at an opponent shooting in the mid-range, 41%. That's ranked 6th in the NBA. Corner three field goal percentage, 35%. That's 3rd in the entire NBA during the regular season, and all threes. So they're guarding all threes. They're the 4th best team at guarding the threes in the NBA. So they're basically using reverse analytics, right? We're going to guard, you're going to have layups, but we're going to guard all your shots. You're not going to get middies against us. You're not going to get threes against us. And in fact, over in the playoffs, they've actually improved on these numbers. So this is what they do. They know their best player has to be on the court. So the construction of their team is that, okay, we know you're weak in this area, Jokic, because you're a demigod. We're going to build a roster that plays to your strengths and also have a philosophy that allows you to be able to flourish in your strengths and then have your weaknesses mitigated. Right? And what does that mean for the Rockets? Like, what does that really mean for the Rockets? And for me, the way I look at it is that you don't have to play to Alp's absolute strengths. Right? You don't have to treat him like he's an MVP player like Denver does with Jokic. But what you do have to do is recognize his talent and be decisive, and understanding that the great teams, the elite teams, actually, you have to maximize multiple players at the same time and kind of spot what they do best and then use that to your advantage to build a roster, whether it's building a certain defensive style or offensive style, or bringing in certain players to supplement some of the things that some of your best players do best. And I think Denver has done a great job doing that. That's why they find themselves in the finals now. They've actually leaned into the strength of their player, and they've leaned into the strength of their players, because let's expand it out to Jamal Murray and to Michael Porter Jr. These players weren't like, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 picks like Jalen Green and Jabari Smith are. They don't have the pedigree of talent like a Tari, Eason, and some of the guys that we have on our roster. What they do have is a smart team building philosophy and a smart coach. And I think, I can't speak much for the team building philosophy at this point, but I know Ime Udoka is a smart coach. And I think he's going to maximize, everybody on the team. And if you look at, how we were last season under Steven Silas, When Jalen, Tari, and Bari were on the floor together with Alp off, the team was a minus 13.9 points per possession, and the offensive rating 114, defensive rating 128.3. So that's terrible. The offense not so terrible, but the defense is just atrocious. But when they were on the floor together with Alp, so you have the core four together: Jalen, Tari, Bari, and Alp. And this is with Bari being trash. And you know what I mean, for most of the season, he got better towards the end. But when the core four, the guys that we know we're gonna try to at least keep, you know, if you twist our arm, we might have to move one of them. But at the end of the day, these are guys are gonna be here. They were minus 3.8. And you'd be like, well, it's a minus. But think about how bad our team was, right? Our team's baseline is like minus, you know, like over 10 or something like that. So they were a minus 3.8 on the season. That's a plus 10 differential with our core four, with Alp, with those three guys. So I know he maximizes them. I've done videos with Jalen, showing Jalen's numbers with Alp assistant to him. He's shooting like 60% from the court. Jalen is better with Alp on the court, right? Jabari's better with Alp on the court. You could see that their points per possession, offensively 113, so it's pretty much the same, which will have them as a 24th ranked offense in the NBA. And their defensive points per possession is at 117, which will put them, like, I think, like at 26 or 27, or like probably 25. But the difference is the tier between like the 25 and the 26 team is like 4 points. So you go from like 113 to 114, like you're around 24, then 117, then it goes to like 120. You know, it kind of falls off a cliff there. So the problem with Stephen Silas, this is the issue. This is the issue I had with Stephen Silas. Why did our core four only have 219 possessions together? Why did that happen? Why did our core four only have 219? That means Jalen Green, Tari, Eason, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Sengun only played 219 possessions together. 219 possessions together in a whole season. This is why this man is fired. Like, he really was just terrible. And Stone, you got to catch some of this because you should have intervened. We know you were dabbling and dibbling early on with the lineups, but there's some things you got to step in for. Like, your job as a GM is to evaluate the talent you have and maximize them, not only for the world to see, but for you to know how you're going to use them. And you didn't even do that. You let Stephen Silas run amok with these lineups, and we only have 219 possessions of our core four. So you have people out here making trade scenarios, flipping this guy for this guy. And Lord, I just read the Kelly Eco article. My God, if y'all don't know what I'm talking about, just check it out. It's wild. It's pretty wild. But you know, some of the trade packages you're getting back. At least I got flamed for the Jabari and the fourth pick to I think to Portland or whatever for Scoot. I mean, at least that was a realistic trade. You know, y'all might not like it, but that was a realistic trade. That was, you know, I mean, I thought it was a decent trade. But at the end of the day, that's just all hypothetical. Like, in reality, this is the reason I just, you know, I like what Paul George was saying to Jalen when he said, like, these dudes, they already put the work, like, they've been through the trauma, bro, going with Stephen Silas. Let them learn to win in the NBA on the backs, on their own sweat, right? It seems like James Harden is going to be here regardless. You pray that they don't give him a 4-year max. I may have to do a video on how he fits on this roster, but you know, I mean, one of the main reasons, just on a basketball note, I really want to see what these kids can do because they play well together. Like, you think about it. Maybe Alperen doesn't become Jokic, but if he's a tier below, maybe a tier and a half below, if he's not a 2-3-time MVP, what is the tier and a half below that? What? Multi-all-star? And then we know that Jalen Green is already trajectory-wise better than Jamal Murray. Right? So that's not debatable. You can look at their numbers, whatever. If you take a better Jamal Murray, a lesser Jokic, that evens out to me. Right? Then you got Jabari Smith Jr. Maybe he doesn't shoot as well as a Michael Porter Jr., right? But he's a better defender, more versatile on defense. Maybe he's not a 40% shooter, he's a 38% shooter. To me, I don't even think that's a wash. I think I give that nod to Jabari, higher pedigree. Then you look at some of the other pieces on their roster. Can Tari, Eason be like an Aaron Gordon, an all-around defensive guy, guarding the best forwards on the other team? Maybe switch out, and I could even put Jabari in that position. Can he be that guy for them? Can he be that player? I think Tari can be that and some, because he's already like a 35-36% three-point shooter. We know teams give Aaron Gordon the Russ treatment on the court. They give him the Draymond treatment, right? Then you look at some of their other ancillary pieces. Those are just, extra guys, vets you're bringing in. You know what I mean? Guys that could shoot. The KCPs of the world, the dead-eye shooters. Maybe you grab a Cam Johnson. You know what I mean? Maybe you bring a 3-and-D wing. Maybe Kevin Porter plays that off-ball role where he's one of the best catch-and-shoot three-point shooters in the NBA as we speak. You know what I mean? Maybe you bring in some vets like the Jeff Greens of the world to supplement that team. Maybe you have a glue guy. You know what I mean? Like Bruce Brown, that's dynamic and runs pick and rolls with you like a KJ Martin, right? Maybe you have the ingredients you need to cook this food that we're trying to take to the chip. Maybe you just need to be patient, right? Maybe we all just need to be patient with this team. You know what I mean? So I think for the Nuggets, patience is the key because even from me, I've said they should blow it up multiple times through their failures in the bubble, getting beat by us when we were good and getting, losing in the second rounds, the first round, and going out. They just kept at it. Fire their coach. They kept at it. And after this kid, Jokic, was drafted in 2015, here he is, almost 8 years later, since he was drafted, going to the finals. The route to building a contender, not just a championship team, but a contender and a dynasty, is through the draft. That's never going to change. You can scrap together free agents, bring in guys, do this, do that, try to build a super team. You might get one or two. But it's as old as the NBA. You draft the guys, unless you're the Lakers. They can do that because it's LA. But most of the other teams, building a contender takes years. A lot of failure. Jordan went through failure. LeBron, everybody goes through failure. I think it's too early to start trading guys and blowing the team up and doing all this. Trying to be competitive, trying to get on ESPN 3 more times, trying to do this, do that. We got the pieces, guys. These guys are talented. I think Alperen Sengun is going to be a star in this NBA. And I think Coach Udoka, with his offense, with the how they run dribble handoffs and how they play defense and how he's going to get our wings, Jabari and Tari, on the court at the same time. You're talking about length, smart, strength. I think we can be the Denver Nuggets. Not now, maybe not in 3 years, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 6 years. I think our talent outside of Jokic is better than theirs, and I think that Ime is a great coach, and I hope he's here for the long run. We're going to see what he got to cook. But y'all let me know, does what Jokic do or is doing right now in the playoffs? And we'll see what happens in the finals. But he made it there. Does that change your perception on having that player archetype? Because I believe that Alperen has already shown that he's a guy, right? And if that shot comes in, and he's going to naturally get better on defense. That's going to happen. I'm not even worried about that. And the team gets better, and Jalen gets better, and Tari gets better, and Jabari gets better, and KPJ gets better, and they bring in some vets and some supplemental cast players to help them out, and we get a better coach like we already have, and Stone that kind of turned into a good GM somehow, some way, where they get somebody else. Can that lead us to glory? Y'all let me know in the comments. Hit the like on this video. If you're not a member of the Chop Shop, what are you doing with yourself? Subscribe to the channel, support the channel, keep rocking with us, and we're going to keep dropping that